We will now begin to hear from members who wish to give their opening statements. And I will turn and begin by recognizing the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Walden.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I especially appreciate your comments about the need for jobs. Oregon is now second only to Michigan in its unemployment rate, and I dare say the district I represent, that's home to 10 or 11 of our nation's national forests, unfortunately comes in with some of the highest unemployment rates in the country and in the state. Unfortunately, the draft bill, which I've begun to work my way through, doesn't help us. If you're in a forested timber community, and in fact, there's no scientific basis for the definition that's used in here to describe biomass and prohibit the use of any biomass off federal forest lands and most likely off private forest lands to count toward renewable energy when in fact there's an enormous opportunity for renewable energy to be produced off our federal forest lands and our private forest lands. For some reason, the definition on page 8 of this bill specifically prohibits any biomass off federal land from being included as renewable. There is no scientific basis for that definition whatsoever. And I hope it can be changed. I plan to offer an amendment to change and delete it, frankly. My district's also home to enormous growth in wind energy, and I've been a big advocate of wind energy. One of the great synergisms that occurs in the Northwest is between using the hydroelectric system to be the battery by storing water to balance out the curve when it comes to wind power. Because as anybody in the wind energy side knows, wind is not firm power. And in fact, in the Northwest, you will find times, this January specifically, where there was 10 days when there was no wind, which meant no energy released. Other times, within an hour, you could have 1,000 megawatt difference between the output of the wind energy, up or down. That means that energy has to be firmed up. Hydro systems are terrific for firming up energy. Yet in this legislation, hydro that predates 2001 is not considered as renewable, and yet hydro after that is, unless hydro's on a facility that on page 11 of the definition shows that if the water surface elevation at any given location or time changes because of that hydro, then suddenly it is not considered renewable. Can somebody explain to me how that works? Unless you simply have in-stream hydro, which really isn't a reality in most cases, although we have some in irrigation canals, which is fine. But to do big hydro or new hydro, you're most likely going to affect the elevation at some point and at some time. If you're going to use hydro to store as the battery the energy that then is used to fill in when wind energy does not occur. So, Mr. Chairman, there are enormous challenges with the draft of this legislation when it comes to the definitions. Some of these definitions defy both logic and science, and yet there is an enormous opportunity to develop renewable energy. I participated in a science committee field hearing yesterday morning in Vancouver, Washington, that was put on by our colleague, Mr. Baird. And at that hearing, one of the scientists from the University of Washington indicated that there is plenty of renewable wood fiber in the Northwest to, in fact, she said, provide replacement fuel for all gasoline consumption in the state of Oregon using something called methanol. Methanol, by the way, is what we use today in race cars. It is a proven technology, it is a proven fuel, and yet it is discriminated against when we talk about alternative fuels. Meanwhile, our forests go up in smoke at unprecedented rates. With temperature change and global warming, we need to be better stewards of our nation's forests. And yet, you've got enormous fires. According to the California Forestry Association, wildfires burning more than 8 million acres spew as much carbon monoxide into the air as all the cars and factories in the U.S. combined in the same months. From 2004 to 2008, an average of 8.9 million acres burned in wildfires each year. Our forests are going up in smoke. Drought, bug infestation, mortality, 400 million board feet a year in mortality alone in the Northwest. There's enormous opportunity to turn that woody biomass into a fuel source, to use it for heat source with very little emission, to improve the habitat and environment of the forests, and to thin them out to protect some of the old growth and all that people would like to do. And yet, the very definitions in this bill fail that stewardship. So, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to the markup. I look forward to future hearings on the substance of this measure so that we can fix it and make it workable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman.